Hey, this is Jon Sherwood. We are the Asheville Church Network. I'm here with the network leadership and the Ks to have a little discussion about what just is a microchurch and why are we expressing ourselves in this mode of church. And so I just thought I'd open up the discussion to ask you guys, what is a microchurch?
You know, I'd always been part of churches that had small groups. That wasn't a new concept. But I think what I've come to understand is that a microchurch is a much smaller group, but that can serve the full gamut of the functions of a church.
We're talking about God together, and our teenager is sharing about what she's going through, and there's more voice space, right, where we get to hear from others, and we sing together. We don't have a full choir, you know. There might be one person on a guitar, and we're singing. When someone shares, there might be comfortable silence, you know, uncomfortable silence, what they say, but we get to hear from different voices, folks that are taking in God, whether they're in their teens or whether they're in their 60s, and there's an opportunity to really connect as a community, even if it's in such a small group. And that's church, because God is there as well.
Yeah, I think you're coming into an environment where we have a whole group of people with different backgrounds and experiences and personalities, and you may come into somebody's living room and worship may look completely different than you have ever experienced. And it's such a vast group of people. The people that come and just really pour out their hearts, we're amazed at how quickly God unites together. They may be for a really short season and they move on somewhere, but I think there's a lot of beauty in what God is presenting in these little vulnerable moments maybe of what you may experience in a microchurch.
Nathaniel, Grace, you guys have been joining us and participating in the network over the last several months. If somebody were checking us out on the internet and they were thinking, oh, is this for me or not? How would you advise them? What would you say to them? What were some of the things going on in your mind when you were in a similar position?
I think it's been interesting to see the focus on community. You know, for us coming from kind of a bigger church, you had much more of a focus on the service, and your participation was very isolated to your seat. It kind of became hard, at least where we were before, to build community. And so coming into the Asheville Church Network, where community's kind of built in from the beginning, has been really good, because it's allowed us to really start that process of building up one another, encouraging one another, edifying one another, supporting each other like we've experienced. And it's been very different in a very positive way.
I do think that there is in our context kind of a growing just dissatisfaction, disenfranchisement with kind of church, you know? And let's say somebody might have an inkling to kind of have a spiritual experience or have some spiritual questions or a spiritual longing, but they're I don't really want to go to church as they understand church for whatever many vast reasons that might be. How can this be a helpful entry point for them into the ways of Jesus? What have you guys seen?
I think there's so many ways that can help somebody who might not be your typical churchgoer. You know, when we sit down and we're together, Jesus says, they're going to know you're my disciples by your love for one another. When you're really small as a group, you tend to fall in love a little faster. And so when someone joins for a meal, they're oh, these guys are a little different. And I grew up atheist, so walking into a big, church building with tons of people singing, I'm I don't know what y'all are doing.
I feel like there's no place for you.
Yeah, I talk about feeling out of place. I felt completely out of place. But I might feel less out of place where I'm just at a dinner table having a meal and just talking about life. So there's no one right way, whether it's large church, small, but as we start to meet, we try to bring church to people rather than bringing people to church.
Well, I feel like that's a great place to kind of land the plane on this conversation, that ultimately, big or small, however the expression or modality happens, what we are trying to do because of our faith in Jesus is to learn how to love more like he loves. And ultimately, that means loving people that aren't like us, loving people that may not agree with us, ultimately loving our enemies. And what a challenging, fruitful, fulfilling, lifelong endeavor that is. And so if I were to share to that person, I would just say, come learn how to love with us as Jesus shows us the way.